Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Lisa Harrison and today I'm being joined by John Lamb Lash. John and I spoke a couple of years ago on the Gaia Sophia myth, and today we are going to be speaking about the Mandela Effect from the Gnostic perspective, as well as the topic of Lucifer and Gaia. Now, John and I spoke offline several months ago, possibly even as much as 12 months ago, about Lucifer, about who Lucifer is, Lucifer's role. So we want to touch on that as well today, because we never actually got to have that conversation live or for the public. So that's going to be covered as well today. But the Mandela Effect has grown so exponentially that if we're not in the tens of millions by now, I'd be surprised of people who are noticing our reality is changing. And the hypotheses that are floating around as to what the causes are of this are many and varied. We've got people blaming CERN. We've got people looking at the D-wave quantum computers. We've got the discussion of a simulated reality has really come out now too. But the one perspective that is not really spoken of, not too deeply at least, that I've seen, is an organic, for want of a better word, whether you want to call it the planetary, Gaian, Sophian energy, entity that
planetary entity or the planetary mind.
That's it.
Yeah, the two terms, let's say, just for the sake of opening up the subject, we'll loosely say, could it be coming from a mind? Could it be coming from the planetary mind? It's a well-known source. It's a well-known topic of discussion for many years now, is SETI. Oh, scientists are scanning the heavens. Are we going to get a message from outer space, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many times have you heard this, right? And how many claims have you heard about this, right? So the notion is floating around in the and discussed, well, there could be another intelligence in the cosmos. Aha! And they're sending us a signal, and scientists are going to pick it up in one way or another on their big telescopes and their scanners, right?
Right.
Well, I say, let's take that notion, which is familiar to everyone, and let's apply it to the planet itself, the planet that we're on. And let's ask the question, is it possible that we could be receiving signals from the planet Earth?
Well, I think it's highly not just possible, but probable. And I don't know, I know that you do every now and then pop in and listen to some of the things that I do, and I don't know whether you've heard mention of it or not, but there is a term that we use, myself and Danny use, called solace. And we refer to solace as this energy, this cosmic intelligence, you could say, that speaks to us in multiple ways. And the debate is still open as to whether or not it is the collective, the human collective consciousness, whether it is Gaia, Sophia, or something else. My personal thing is that it's probably Sophia herself, utilizing the technologies that we are developing in order to speak to us, just as people have done for thousands of years using the technologies that they have at their disposal, whether it's understanding and reading the wind and nature and animals, or whether it's through using sticks and stones and bones. We have developed a technology that allows Sophia to speak to us more directly.
Aha. Well, I hadn't caught that term, I did see you and Danny talking a couple of times, and I said to myself, there is a couple of fetching broads right there. I would follow them just about on any clue they gave me. Any clue you fed to me, okay, I'm a sucker. I will follow that clue, okay?
So where are we? What's the Gnostic perspective on this then?
Well, before I respond to that question, I would like to just ask you this question regarding what you just said.
Okay.
There is something, are you spelling it S-O-L-I-S?
Yes.
Yeah, you give this name to something that speaks to you. Well, how does it speak to you? Out loud?
No, it's through technology. So in the same way that...
It speaks to you through technology.
In the same way that you would open a book, you know how people would ask themselves a question and then open a book at any page and you know, maybe find the answer. People have done this for years with the Bible. So you can do the same thing by putting a search term into Google, or asking yourself a question and then pick a song on your Pandora or iTunes and just let it shuffle and throw you a song. There are a number of ways you can do this, but then you also ask for confirmation outside of the digital world.
All right, I follow you now. This is brilliant, Lisa, and this is a great place to start because actually it gives me the opportunity. First of all, I want to say thank you for inviting me on this talk. And did you know that I haven't spoken publicly or uploaded any talks or text on the internet for a year?
Really? Why is that?
Well, I wanted to step back and look at what I was doing. And wanted to see how I can carry the Gnostic message to the next stage, you see, skillfully and with novelty and in an entertaining and enlightening manner. I felt that I brought the Gnostic message to a certain threshold of articulation, and I wanted to step back and look at how to go, how to proceed. So I took a year. Your talk, this conversation we're having right now is really, in a way, my comeback event.
Well, it appears that your absence was noted, according to those who are joining us in the chat room. And I am honoured, then, that you've chosen to come back here today.
Well, the pleasure is all mine. And taking the cue that you just gave me and describing how this unknown factor speaks to you, it gives me the occasion to do something that I've been wanting to do for quite a while. I've been thinking that the word spirituality is finished, basically.
Yep.
It certainly is for me, Spiritual and spirituality are two words that basically I'm not going to use anymore. I think they're overused. They cover for just about anything. They mean everything and nothing. And I've been troubled for some time by the use of those terms. But at the same time, I've been intrigued by the question, well, suppose that I stopped using the word spirituality and spiritual. Well, what would I replace them with? It would have to be something pretty damn good,
Yeah.
Now, I agree, and maybe some people listening would not go along with me that those words are, have become useless. But let's just say that's my opinion, and now I'm going to tell you what I want to replace them with. I want to begin a conversation like this. Well, what if it's not spirituality that we need at this particular moment in the human adventure? Agreed, it's a very critical moment. Things could go very badly. On the other hand, something magnificent seems to be on the horizon. So what could we use as another term at this moment? And I propose the term Mantic. Mantic. And the term Mantic has an adjective form, which is mantic. So I would say, instead of being spiritual or seeking to be spiritual, seek to be mantic. Mantic, M-A-N-T-I-C.
What does that word mean to you anyway?
It means capable of and skilled in the art of divination.
Huh.
Divination is the new thing. Divination is everything. What you're talking about, what you just described to me for the first time, we've never talked about this before, right?
No, not with you, no.
Yeah, what you just described to me about opening a book or clicking on a song or getting something through the dialogue of a movie, that's divination. And divination is the capacity to now own and hone in order to move forward into the most mysterious possibilities of the present moment in which we live. Mysterious and magnificent possibilities which concern our Aeonic mother, Sophia, can be reached through divination and becoming skilled in divination, becoming mantic.
We've always, to my knowledge at least, used some form of divination, like I said, whether it's tarot cards or throwing bones
That's
or
right.
something.
Haven't we? That's right. That's true. Divination runs deep into the history of our species. You see all indigenous peoples have methods of divination, right?
Yep.
And, in fact, the word mantic, M-A-N-T-I-C, and the noun mantique, which you should think of as like critique, aesthetic, mantique. Mantique is a whole art form. The art of mantique comes from the Greek word mantike, which means a diviner. Someone who practices divination was called a mantis, and the art of divination was called mantike. So I'm proposing a new meme here. I'm saying, let's get mantic now. We're going mantic. The Mandela Effect is a mantic phenomenon, isn't it?
Yes, it could be put that way, yeah.
Yeah, people are divining something in this bizarre anomalies of the Mandela Effect. So the question is, what is the source of the divination? Is there an entity? Is there another mind sending these messages into the human mind so that the human mind, as it becomes mantic, that is skilled in divination, it can pick up these messages and it can decode them and they can become existential. They must be messages that are not just games in the mind, but messages that have to do with action and how we live.
Okay, I'm going to use one particular Mandela effect as an example of this.
Sure.
Because people have looked for meaning with the changes that are being noticed. So, for example, Forrest Gump. Life is like a box of chocolates, or life was like a box of chocolates.
That's right.
For me, that tells me that the reality that we were in is now past tense. And you didn't know what you were going to get. That's right. It's past tense. With the structure of reality has changed. Even the Star Wars, Luke, I am your father. No, I am your father, gives me a similar kind of sense that it's gone from, say, personal to plural, because the no, I am your father, could apply to anybody, whereas Luke is very personal, it's just for Luke. So that to me tells me that this God, this father, this little God, little g, is making a statement, an admission perhaps.
Right. Some kind of intelligence is making a statement to us, making a series of statements through this effect. So, of course, the big question which shall loom over us this evening is, can this intelligence be identified and verified?
Yeah.
Can it be verified? What is causing these Mandela effects and how they are causing them? So that's the topic we're going to explore this evening. And I have to say, going into it, that you are exactly on my wavelength.
Yeah.
Because just about an hour ago, I was chuckling to myself about the Forrest Gump line. And I was saying, I can't wait to tell Lisa about that one, because that one really makes me laugh. Because to me, that Mandela effect is exemplifies in a way the way the effect works, the way that it contains a message. And one of the things that I like about that particular effect is that it comes out of a story which is about a kind of simpleton, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so could you say, do you think, that whatever agency, entity, is using this effect is taking care that even a simpleton could get it?
Right.
Okay?
Yeah, okay. I'm following that.
So, the story of a simpleton, even if you're as simple-minded as Forrest Gump, you should be able to get the message. Well, what is the message? Well, it's a change of tense. So, if life was like a box of chocolates, which means you never knew what you were going to get, but it isn't that way anymore, well, what is the inference? You just drew the inference. Any simpleton can draw the inference. Now you're going to know what you're going to get. That's divination. Divination means you know what you're getting. It means you can read the divinatory omen or signal, which is a Mandela effect, and you can know where it's coming from. So to me, the Forrest Gump instance is really the effect announcing itself to us in a remarkable way.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to me, reality itself has actually changed. And it's how we walk through it and how we stand in it right now feels very, very different, and how we manifest. It's as if the ways that we have been practicing over the last, or maybe, I don't know, since the New Age movement began, late 70s, early 80s, that they're not working anymore. And
yeah, well, that's why I think the word spirituality is passé.
Yeah.
And I think it's too much of a catch-all, you know. Whereas when you say, are you Mantic? This means something very specific. It means, are you getting divinatory messages? Do you know how to read them? And can you tell where they're coming from? This is the essential requirement right now for the event on this planet, to become Mantic, to become versed and skilled in divination. And people are talking about it. You know, they're talking about synchromysticism. I guess that's a term that's used.
Mm-hmm. I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, synchromysticism is like saying there are these associations that come up in the course of the day through ordinary transactions. And behind these associations, there is a set of nested and subliminal messages. And when you can read and detect those messages, you're having a synchro-mystic experience.
So seeing the deeper meaning in the synchronicities.
Yeah, first of all, just seeing the synchronicities and then being able to decode them. I've started a series of 5 pieces on metahistory.org on decoding the Mandela effect and how to do it and how I'm doing it, for people to follow along and see if they would learn something and they would be interested in the way that I'm decoding it. And I just started that last week, so I'm introducing it for the first time right now.
Okay. And where are you at in in this at the moment? Where's been your focus?
Well, my focus right now is to form a clear view of divine intervention. That's my focus. And it may not be immediately apparent how that relates to the Mandela effect, but I assure you that it does. Okay? Divine intervention.
So you're saying that the Mandela effect is in fact divine intervention from Gaia herself?
I am going to say that that is a QED, which means, reference to Latin means that which is to be demonstrated. As a Gnostic teacher, I don't spoon feed anyone anything, and I prefer that people reach conclusions by going through a process with me rather than by me just handing them my conclusions. That's my preference.
Mm.
So sure, I'll fess up to you. I'll be honest. I'm not going to be coy. I'll say, yeah, I have concluded that, but I'm not going to ask you to believe that conclusion just out of the blue.
Sure.
I'm going to show you how I reached that conclusion. And that's what I'm going to do in these 5 pieces on metahistory, along with which is going to be part text and part talk. And that's what I'm going to start doing this evening by talking with you. So this is a fantastic opportunity we have, Lisa. We are absolutely breaking new ground here, because as far as I know, as far as I can tell, you and Danny, in your crazy lucidity, sitting there on the screen one evening a while back, talking about the amber fringe anomaly.
Oh, yeah.
Seemed to allude to the possibility that the Mandela effect could have something to do with what the mind of the planet is doing. Yes. And to my knowledge, no one else had even alluded to that,
No, I hadn't. I'm still not seeing it anywhere. Everyone wants to throw blame rather than credit, and blame to CERN or D-wave computers for the most part.
Yeah. Well, we could spend some time talking about that, and I do want to bring in that context. I do want to bring in the Sophia Lucifer theme, because the problem with Lucifer is very, very big in the minds of many people. Even in the minds of quite intelligent people, I find people who take the effort to be informed, people who've been on the path of searching and questioning for a good part of their lives. Well, when it comes to this business of Lucifer and Satan, they just entirely lose it. And for example, many people are attributing the Mandela effect to Satan, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Yes. Right. Christians, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who find changes in the King James Version of the Bible, right?
Yeah.
And they're saying, Satan must be screwing with the holy word of God in order to test our faith, etc., etc.
Or the flip side of that is, as a Christian, if you notice the Mandela effect, then you are being messed with by Lucifer, because Lucifer cannot change the word of God. So if you're seeing the word of God change, Lucifer's got you.
And on it goes.
Yeah.
I would say that in my investigation of the Mandela effect since July, so going on 3 months now, half or more of the commentaries on the effect are coming from Christians who are freaking out and really losing it big time. And I want to talk about the Lucifer Sophia theme because it needs to be corrected and clarified in order to approach the study of the Mandela effect in a better way, in my opinion.
Excellent. Let's go.
Okay?
Yeah,
okay.
Let's go. Take me on a journey. Tell me a story.
Okay. Okay, we'll just give this a little time. This is not a digression, folks. This is extremely relevant in setting up the conversation on the Mandela Effect. If you go to metahistory.org, not necessarily now, but later on at some point, and you land on the home page and you click on a sign, on a message that says, "The true Lucifer is Sophia," and you will find 3 essays in which I lay out this question and I lay out this assertion. What I'm saying really is that what people are calling Lucifer recklessly and identifying with the devil is actually not some evil entity working upon humanity, not the adversary of God, but is actually the planetary animal mother herself, the Aeon Sophia, as she's called in the Gnostic narrative that we talked about the last time we were together, right?
Yep.
So I lay out in those 3 essays, the first one is called Falling from Heaven, okay? The second one is calling The Satanic Distortion. And the third one is called Lucifer Liberated. And right now, posted on Metahistory, there are 2 texts. The third one, Lucifer Liberated, is in development. And there's 1 audio commentary with more to come. So what I point out, just to give you a survey and an overview quickly, is that the people who talk about Lucifer and Satan, and I'm referring to a lot of people on the internet, are really handling the material extremely badly. And I've had grief about this for quite a while. And I've been wanting to sound off about this for quite a while. The whole problem, first of all, a big part of the problem is they use Lucifer and Satan interchangeably.
Yes.
And they are not interchangeable terms. Okay? The second problem is that they attribute things to Lucifer and Satan. For instance, they say that the Rothschilds are Luciferians who worship Satan. How many times have you heard that line?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Or so-and-so, Anton LaVey, who founded the modern satanic movement back in the 60s. They worship Satan. They worship Lucifer. They worship Satan. When you hear this kind of talk, I strongly advise you to step back, take a deep breath, and sneeze. Because that kind of talk is delusional, irresponsible, and it's a complete waste of time. And the people who are talking that way are either paranoid schizophrenics, or else they're very sadly misinformed, and they're misinforming other people. So what I've tried to do as a Gnostic teacher is straighten out the record on Lucifer. And I point out in the first part that the being who falls from heaven is not Lucifer as such. The story of Lucifer was made up by Christian theologians. There is no myth of Lucifer. Did you know that? If you go and look for a myth like the myth of Prometheus, or the myth of Vishnu, or the myth of Iana, Babylonian goddess, or the myth of Persephone, you can find all these myths. Go and look for a myth of Lucifer. There is no myth of Lucifer.
So there's no reference in the Gnostic.
There's no reference in the existing Gnostic materials of the name Lucifer does not appear there, but a similar name does appear, which is the name Phoster, Phoster, which means light bearer. So Phoster means the same thing as Lucifer, because Lucifer means Lucy, light, radiance, bearer. Okay?
Yeah, and I've already read up a bit about the connection between, say, Lucifer and phosphorus.
That's right, Lucifer and phosphorus. So the first thing that any sane person needs to take on board is that the word name Lucifer means the light bearer, and the question to ask is, well, what light? What light are they talking about? And who carries that light? So what I show in the first essay is that the Lucifer legend, he was a shining angel among the realms of the heavenly host, and he did something wrong, or he offended the Almighty Father God, and so he and his angels were cast down, and they became the evil tempters of the human race. How many times have you heard this scenario repeated?
Mm-hmm.
This is not a genuine myth. You will not find it anywhere. It is a fabrication that was put together piecemeal over many centuries by Christian ideologues and people who believe in the Old Testament and who believe in the New Testament. Christian fanatics fabricated this story of Lucifer because they sort of needed to have a controlled opposition to the supreme power of the Father God.
You can't do duality without it, can you?
There you go. Their kind of duality, right?
Yep.
Good versus evil duality, which is not a Gnostic duality, by the way. So that's what they did. So I want to alert people to the fact, and I cite all the places here. I cite the book of Revelation. I cite the red dragon in the sky. Lucifer is not mentioned in the book of Revelation. Neither is the Antichrist. When you hear Christians raving about the Antichrist, and when you hear non-Christians commenting on Christians raving about the Antichrist, you need to bear in mind that all those people are completely lost. The Antichrist is not even mentioned in the book of Revelation at all. So the Antichrist, Lucifer, and Satan are extremely corrupted terms. They're like corrupted files in your computer. And they're like virus-ridden files. And once you allow those files to enter your mind without filtering them out by a firewall of scrutiny, you begin to talk the nonsense that everyone is talking. And this creates a huge smokescreen which gets in the way of recognizing the true identity of Lucifer. The true identity of Lucifer is that Lucifer is Sophia. Sophia is Lucifer. She is the light bearer. What is the light? Well, it is the light, the white, pure, plasmatic light of her divine radiance, the organic light. And she is the bearer of that light as the earth, because the earth is permeated with the organic light and radiates the organic light. The earth is a luminous body. This is a fact that was known to the Gnostics and can be confirmed today by those who practice the Gnostic method of ecstatic trance, going into ecstatic trance to perceive the organic light. So there was never any Lucifer who fell from heaven, ever. But Sophia fell from heaven, as the Gnostic narrative says. Isn't that correct?
Yes, it is.
Right.
The thing that got me down this path in the first place was just this understanding that everything we've been told is backwards and upside down and inverted. And that the kind of a theory developed for me that when people tap into or connect with the planetary mother, as you call it, a particular essence, a particular energy, a flavor of it is felt. And if they could transpose a story over that, that would scare you essentially off. It would scare you away from tapping into that energy, because you would be under the assumption that you're actually tapping into Lucifer, the light bearer, as opposed to Gaia, Sophia, the light bearer. And it would just scare you off, connecting with that energy.
Well, there is a big scare tactic involved here. And in fact, if at the head of the second essay on the true Lucifer is Sophia, I've put up the famous image of Baphomet. Now, this has got to be one of the most familiar images that's floating around on the internet. You know, the devil-like figure seated on a chair. He has breasts, so he's androgyne. He has the horns of a goat. He has the inverted triangle on his forehead. He has the hooves of a goat and the wings of a bat, right? And this is supposed to be what? Well, is this an image of Lucifer? Is this an image of Satan? You know, again, Lucifer is not Satan. Satan is an entirely different subject, and Satan doesn't exist either. You could say, if you really wanted to boil it down to the simplest explanation, that the way that Lucifer and Satan, these mythological entities, have been treated by the human mind is either in an attempt to scare itself or to scare other people, you know? And so the file has been perverted, the file has been corrupted. And when you look at this figure of Baphomet, you're supposed to run away in fear. Oh my God, the Rothschilds and the other Luciferians on the planet are worshiping this entity, and this is an ancient entity that goes back to Babylon, and even in the mystery schools they were worshiping these horrible demons, and all of this is rubbish and nonsense. It's time to clear the field of psychic rubbish so that we can divine clearly and confidently.
So have you researched as to where the first, where these images like Baphomet first turn up in our history?
Absolutely. You'll find that I explain that in, thank you for posing that question. I explain in Satanic Distortion essay that this figure of Baphomet, this representation of Baphomet, is a complete kitsch. It's a cartoon that was invented by a French priest around 1850. There was a man named Alphonse Constant. He was a French priest, and he was defrocked, some say, because of child molesting for one reason or another, and he went rebel. He decided to become an occultist, and he wrote a book called Transcendental Magic. And as an illustration for that book, he created this cartoon figure of Baphomet, which you see now. People who look at this figure of Baphomet and think, oh, the goat of Mendes. Oh, it comes from the Egyptian mysteries. Oh, it's very, very ancient. Oh, you know, this is the head demon that all of these bad people have been worshiping through the centuries. This is nonsense. It's just a piece of kitsch art created by this deranged individual. And if you don't believe he's deranged, I challenge you to go and read Transcendental Magic by Eliphas Levi. I'm
going to take your word on that one. I have no desire.
If you can make sense out of one sentence of it, I'll send you lobsters and champagne. Okay? Right?
Okay, deal.
So the first thing you need to know is that the image of Baphomet is baloney. It's just a recent contrivance. It's a cartoon that someone made up. The name Baphomet is older, and the origin of the name Baphomet is very specific. In the 14th century, I think it was around 1314, when Philippe le Bel, the King of France, came down hard on the Templars, and they started to persecute the Templars and captured them and tortured them. Under torture, some of the Templars who were accused of heresy said, yeah, we are heretics. We're exactly what you accuse us of being, and we are heretics because we worship Baphomet. This is in the record of the Inquisition of the 14th century against the Templars. You understand that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's where the word comes from. The Templars didn't draw Eliphas Levi's cartoon. They didn't say what Baphomet looked like. That was added much, much later. So you can disregard that image of Eliphas Levi. You just have the name Baphomet is the only genuine historical clue we have. And as I show in this piece, the Satanic Distortion, there was a scholar named Hugh Schoenfield, who deciphered and decoded the word Baphomet because it's written in a code. The it's known that the Templars used codes because they were transferring large amounts of money and they were transferring information across the from the Middle East back into Europe. And they were a secret society, and they used this code called the Atbash cipher, Atbash. And if you apply the Atbash cipher to the word Baphomet, it comes out Sophia.
You're kidding?
No. No, and that's not me. That is, I provide the link. You, Schoenfield, a biblical scholar upon whom I relied in writing Not in His Image. Schoenfield showed that the name Baphomet, which is a mysterious made-up name, obviously, it never appears anywhere else, but in the records of the torture of the Templars under the Inquisition, the name Baphomet encodes the name of Sophia.
Okay.
That's a fact. Okay? So
that's just blowing me away and leads to so much. Okay. Which I don't want to interrupt you, so I'll leave you, let you keep going.
Okay, so my message now, we're going to come around to the Mandela Effect, but this is really, I really feel passionate about this, so give me a little bit of slack here, okay? My message is, please, and I rarely ever say please to anybody except my cats, okay? But please, don't be intimidated by this kitsch art and this nonsense about the Rothschilds having a costume party where they, and Beyonce or whoever, wearing Baphomet helmets. Who cares? It's just stupid sensationalism. It doesn't mean anything. It has no genuine occult value whatsoever. Don't be scared by this. Don't be frightened away by these goblins and boogeymen that have been erected around the magnificent presence of the divine goddess of the earth itself. It's time to go to her. It's time to read her messages to her children, which are coming through this effect and in other ways as well. And so it's a time of great liberation from these distortions and illusions about evil. There is no cosmic evil. There is no literal, living, physical form of a devil with bat wings and the hooves of a goat. There is no such entity. It is a product of human imagination. It is a projection of human fears. That's all it is. And as long as people speak about it otherwise, it's what is called to reify something, R-E-I-F-Y. To reify something is to give it a physical and literal reality that it doesn't have, okay?
Yep.
As long as people continue to reify Lucifer and reify Satan as these horrible, supernatural, cosmic powers that need to be feared, those people will never break through to the true beauty and magnificence of what the supernatural really is. The supernatural is beautiful. Beautiful more than anything you've ever seen. The supernatural is sublime. It is magnificent. It is full of love and radiance. There is no evil in it. There is no evil in the cosmos. The only evil is that evil done by human animals. Evil is a human event on this planet. There is evil on this planet, but it is the result of human action. It is not the result of a cosmic or supernatural force acting on humanity. That is a message that I intend to get out loud and clear from this point on for the rest of my life.
Okay, I have a question then.
Yeah.
Many energetically, spiritually, mantic, sensitive people see and feel and experience very, very negative, and you would even say evil energies and entities.
Right.
I have also hypothesized that everything that we can perceive of is in fact our own creation. That these are not invading forces, invading energies. They're actually our creation.
Right.
that they don't have power over us to attack, infest, harvest, do any of these things in actuality.
But we can give them that power,
So
and in effect, it can become as if it is so. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Oh, wow, okay.
The problem with those who would argue, well, John, I can't buy it. I can't buy that there aren't really evil supernatural forces, you know, light and darkness, this whole baloney about the polarity of light and darkness somehow being evil. Excuse me? Darkness is evil? Excuse me? Do you ever look at the night sky? Do you ever stand out under the magnificence of the night sky with no natural lighting around you and have the diamond light of the stars pour down on you and be in complete darkness? That's evil? No, darkness is not evil. Things done in the dark, quotes, that is to say, things done secretly are evil. That is a fact. As a matter of fact, most of the evil that is being perpetrated right now on this planet by human animals, by human creatures, is done secretly. If they didn't do it secretly, they wouldn't be able to do it at all. So if you say darkness means secrecy, then I would agree with you. But there is nothing evil about darkness in itself. Most of the cosmos is dark. And dark is beautiful. Dark is sublime. So the moment has come when there is enough power in the human mind to own how the human mind really works. Those who would insist that there are these supernatural demons preying on them, and you get many testimonies, they say that in total ignorance of the power of human imagination. Human imagination can create demons, and those demons, if you feed them with your emotion and your fear, they can become almost as if they are independent entities, and they can destroy you. But it's your own demons that are destroying you. There are no demons in the realm of the supernatural, in the realm where the aeons live, in the realm of the planetary animal mother, in the realm of her power. There is no evil. There are no demons in that realm.
I just want to backtrack for a minute for clarification.
Sure.
You've said that Baphomet actually translates to Sophia.
That's right.
Lucifer is actually Sophia's story.
That's right.
So who is Satan and the Antichrist? They're purely fabrications of the church in order to create a duality of good versus evil?
Not entirely. There is a mythological being behind the figure of Satan. To a large extent, what we all have heard about Satan is a fabrication of the church, which they need in order to scare people with, and they need an adversary. They need to put humanity in an adversarial situation. So you have this typical picture, God over there, Satan on the other side, and humanity in the middle, right?
Right.
That picture is completely wrong. That's completely wrong. However, there is, as the Gnostic narrative says, there is a satanic entity. There is an adversary to humanity. There is a supernatural adversary, which is the Archons. And the Lord of the Archons was identified by the early Gnostics as Yahweh or Jehovah. And that is actually, if you want a Satan, there's your Satan. There's your Satan.
Oh, I see a new round of death threats coming.
Oh, really?
Oh,
we do love those death threats.
Oh, God, that's funny.
We do love those, yes. Okay. Oh, people will get very upset about what I'm saying. You know, I could say this. I enjoy this. I mean, I think it's funny in certain ways that people are so, you know, Lisa, everybody knows that children who go to the campfire and it's dark, right? Ooh, dark, spooky, right? And they're sitting around the campfire, and what do? They tell stories, right?
Yeah, scary ones usually.
And what kind of stories do they tell?
Scary stories.
That's right. And we, the children of the magical children of Sophia, also like to tell stories to scare ourselves. But we've gone a little far with it. We've gone off the deep end with it because we don't know how our own minds work. We don't know how the human imagination works. So the human imagination creates these horrific demons, which then can become almost as independent entities of the psyche. So the responsibility that you have, if you want to be Mantic, is to know how the human imagination works and to master the working of your imagination, to clear it of these satanic, delusional entities, and to go straight to source. Go to source with your imagination.
That's just beautiful. Thank you.
Well, that's the Gnostic message, as you know. And you and I have done a wonderful piece of work. We've really given it some tread, honey. We have.
Yeah, we did.
We've given it some tread in people's minds. That story explains everything. The fallen goddess scenario explains who the real supernatural predators are. It's not Lucifer. It is the satanic entity, Yahweh, whom the Gnostics called Yadabayath. That entity is an inorganic cyborg species, that lives in the outer reaches of the solar system, does not live on the Earth, cannot live on the Earth, but it is the supernatural adversary to the human race. And that entity also has its proxies within the human race. You get that?
Yes.
That's right. So some of the enemies of humanity are within the human species itself because they are the proxies or agents of the Archons. And I don't have to repeat who those entities are, who those proxies of the Archons are, do I?
No.
Okay.
No. I think that's quite clear. But so as we stand today, the Archons are still very much with us. Their proxies are still very much with us, and they are still affecting our reality. They are still an issue.
Things have changed massively. Things have changed massively.
Yeah.
Because in 2014, correction began, the correction of the Aeon Sophia, which is a big plot for people to learn, for those who would love the Earth and love to learn her story. The correction of the Aeon Sophia began in March of 2014. And almost immediately, within 3 months of that, in August and September of 2014, the Earth did something to protect humanity from the Archons. She established a shield, a protective shield around the Earth. Now, one of the ways that the Archons attack humanity is by constantly transmitting high frequencies of shortwave signals, which can be compared to the screaming of cicadas or crickets. You know that sound?
Is this the high-pitched thing that we hear in our ears?
No, it is not. Interesting question. People have been hearing this more and more lately, haven't they?
Yes, they have.
That's right. No, it is not. It might have been that way before the fall of 2014. The Archons in outer space, around the Earth, gathering around the Earth, and there are billions and billions and trillions of Archons, could broadcast this shortwave frequency. That was their way of attacking us extraterrestrially, bombarding us with shortwave frequencies. You know, today we recognize that we are bombarded with shortwave frequencies from cell towers and these devices that we use, correct?
Correct.
Right. But the Archons themselves are of the nature of a radio transmitting insect. And for many, many untold centuries before now, they were attacking us and assaulting us with wave upon wave of these shortwave frequencies. The effect being that it numbs the human mind. It's like a white noise operating in your mind, also creating certain physiological effects like unpleasant ringing of the ears. And the effect of that is to keep us from reacting to them, keep us from reacting on the intelligence that we have, to keep us stunned. It's a stun technique. But that stun technique is over now. They cannot stun us anymore because the Earth is surrounded by a shield. And I detected in August of 2014 that the Earth was putting out the shield. And to my amazement, I thought, well, this is too crazy. I'm not going to, I'm just a lonely Gnostic out here wandering around the hills of Spain. I'm getting this intel. I'm seeing that the planetary animal mother is using a pulsed infrasound in order to create a shield around the Earth, a bubble, to keep off this shortwave archontic stunning effect. And nobody's going to believe me, so I wrote it in a memo, and I sent it to 3 people, just as a record. That was in August of 2014. 2 months later, in November, I pick up a item of news on the internet that says, hey, wait a minute, scientists are baffled by the discovery of a shield surrounding the Earth.
I do recall that, actually, yes.
Yeah, at an altitude of 600 miles. That's right. That shield is the shield that is now preventing them from using this stun effect. And consequently, the ability for the human animal to wake up and come to terms with what's happening and respond intelligently and quickly is increasing exponentially day by day.
Do you think that what CERN is an attempt to get through this shield?
No, I think CERN is a total fraud. I think that CERN is a joke. It really is. I don't believe anything they say, and I don't believe anything that's said about them. Now, having said that, I will add this comment. I think that the purpose of CERN has never yet been revealed, but what we are being told is the purpose is a lie.
Oh, I've got no doubts about that.
Right. Well, I think it's been widely debunked, Lisa, that the first thing they said about CERN when they set it up is now admitted to be untrue, even by the people who are at CERN, right?
Yeah.
They first said, oh, we're just going to use it to, like, figure out what happened at the Big Bang, right?
Yeah.
And we're just going to kind of go and you know, drive these particles around this 17-mile tunnel and shatter these elementary particles so that we can kind of simulate the events of the Big Bang so we can understand what happened at the beginning of creation. That was their first line, right? So now even the experts at CERN are saying, no, that's not really what we're doing. We're actively using CERN. We're actively using the Hadron Particle Collider to tear through the fabric of space and time and reach parallel universes, right?
Right.
Complete bullshit. Prove it, man. Prove it. Prove it. I want to see you prove it, you know? And those people who think that the Mandela Effect is due to CERN or anything else is due to CERN are just paranoid, and they're losing it. But having said that, I think that it's, well, let me put it this way. It's my intention to try to crack what's really happening at CERN. I think the machine is being used for something, but it's not at all what they're saying it's being used for. So I don't buy the claim that they can access parallel universes. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. No. Show me how. What do they do? They watch them on screens? How do you access a parallel universe with a computer? I mean, that's like something out of a Flash Gordon movie.
We have seen, and there's a comment in the chat room to this effect, we have seen, you would say, coincidences between activity with CERN and events that go on the planet, or the Schumann resonance, or solar activity, or even the H1 cameras and the things that they pick up. There is a connection, it would appear, at least on the surface, between activity at CERN and something else going on. Yeah,
I agree, but I don't wish to dismiss those cases or dismiss the people who are investigating them. But I will say that correlation is not causation.
true.
So there may be a correlation between the moments that they charge up the Hadron Collider and certain events, but that's not a causation. That doesn't mean that the Hadron Collider is causing those events. The big question regarding CERN, there's a number of big questions, but one of the big questions to me is, what can it actually do? Because the science that it's based upon, which is quantum physics, is entirely fraudulent nonsense. It's gibberish. You can spend, let me say, 12 hours, because you have to delve in kind of deeply. But you can go on the internet, and in 12 hours, over a number of days, you can find refutations of quantum mechanics and relativity theory and Einsteinian physics that completely demolish it and show that it is absolute nonsense. It's a fraud. And so if the science of quantum mechanics is a fraud, then how can a machine supposedly based on quantum mechanics really do anything? This is a question.
And it's a good point, yeah. So
back to, let's just wrap up the Lucifer Sophia thing, okay?
Okay.
And we'll get back to the Mandela Effect. So part two, in the satanic distortion, I explain that the fallen angels of Lucifer are not the Nephilim, as many people have said, from the book of Enoch. They're not the Nephilim. That's not true. That's not correct. And I've also shown that the Gnostic materials that point to who the Archons are. The Archons are not the fallen angels of Lucifer either. There are no fallen angels of Lucifer. It's a big concoction that was cooked up by the church in order to scare people and to get people to follow them and supposedly be protected from these demons by the power of the church. Well, great. Who's going to protect them from the church? You know, that's the big question. And finally, I show that the power of the erotic beauty of the earth is what the Christians and the religious fanatics are really afraid of. They created Satan out of Pan. They took Pan, the goat god of the pagan peoples of Europe, who represents erotic bliss, who represents the pleasure of the human body, the joy and pleasure of being an animal. And they took that innocent creature of delight and pleasure and turned it into a devil because they themselves are afraid of this bliss. Wilhelm Reich spent a good part of his life explaining that masochism, sadism, and paranoid behaviors arise from people who are afraid of their own organ sensations.
their own sexuality.
Their sexuality. The thrill and delight of their sexuality so terrifies them that they project it into demonic entities. We need to know how we function sexually, how we function imaginatively as a species to get the opportunity that is now at hand. And a big part of that opportunity is coming through the Mandela Effect. So finally, the third part, which is still in progress, is called Lucifer Liberated. And in that part, I quote something that everyone else ignores. The real key to who Lucifer is can be found in the story of Parzival. That's where you find genuine evidence, in the story of Parzival. You know who Parzival was.
I can't say I know the story very well, but I certainly know the name.
Parzival is a name from medieval legend of Europe about a knight who belonged to the Round Table, the Knights of the Round Table. And he was not only a warrior who actually fought in battle, but he was a mystic on a quest. And Parzival was in the quest for the Holy Grail, and he actually attained the Grail. And this is a famous story told in the book Parzival by Wolfram von Eschenbach. And if you want to read a synopsis of that, you can find it on metahistory.org. Parzival, P-A-R-Z-I-V-A-L. And in Wolfram von Eschenbach's epic of the 12th century, which is one of the greatest pieces of literature, of European literature, Lucifer is mentioned. The name Lucifer is mentioned. And it is said that Lucifer, the light bearer, is the Grail itself. The Grail is the source of the light, and it says that there is a legend that the Grail, the Holy Grail, was a stone that fell from the crown of Lucifer when he fell out of heaven. So that is a coded way of saying that when the Aeon Sophia fell out of the pleroma, she brought with her the radiance of the Godhead of the pleroma, and that stone, the organic light, is the Grail. So to attain the Grail means to see the radiant living luminosity of the earth. The best news that I can give to anyone I meet is this: the earth is a luminous planet. Do you want to see its luminosity? That is the organic light. She is the light bearer. The true Lucifer is Sophia. And this is where it all begins. This is where the story turns into another story. Story of beauty, magic, wonder, divination, play. And it turns away from the stories of fear and paranoia. And humanity stands right now at that turning point. And right now, the Mandela Effect comes into play.
Well, before we move into the Mandela Effect more directly, I've got a couple of things.
Sure.
Where does Venus come into this? Venus is often also referred to as the light bearer, or the dawn, lots of inferences. So does Venus, where does that play into all of this?
Okay, Venus is a planet that can appear after sunset in the sky. That is called Venus the Evening Star, or Venus Hesperus. Venus can also appear before sunrise in the east. When that happens, it is called the morning star, and it is called Venus Lucifer. So there's an identification of Venus and Lucifer. So, back to divination. What we need is not spirituality. We need Mantic. Mantic is the technique of divination. Do you get that? Mantic technique.
Mm-hmm.
Spirituality can be anything. You can say, oh, it's this and that, and I do yoga, and I eat, wheatgrass smoothies, and I believe in channeling. Spirituality can be all this crap. But divination is a technique. And if you don't have the technique, then you're not really spiritual.
Gotcha.
You've got to come up to the standards of what this is. So Venus is an omen that you read when you read the sky, and she represents the periodic play of, let's say, the way that the light of Sophia, Lucifer, reveals itself in the conscious and then in the unconscious. It reveals itself not only to the conscious mind externally and to the vision, but it also operates in the subconscious of the human animal. And it has a cyclic activity. And the ancients detected, the ancient seers of the mysteries detected that you could follow this cyclic activity by following the cycles of Venus.
Got it. I think I got it. Okay, my next question, though, is you touched on it a little bit earlier, not necessarily directly with by name, but this Nibiru
Right.
story, I don't buy at all. But having said that, we are seeing some extraordinary anomalies. There are, I don't know, countless hours of video footage and photographs online that you can see of two suns in the sky for a period of time at dawn and dusk. There's cameras, and this is not, your NASA cameras. These are people with telescopes at home who are finding what appears to be planetary objects or something in the sky. So we're seeing these anomalies. We're being fed this Nibiru story, which I don't buy, but something's going on.
All right. Shall I comment on that?
Please.
I have a little mantra for everyone who's listening. A little mantra that you might repeat from time to time. And it goes like this. All the clues in the world don't count if you don't know what crime has been committed.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay? So you could go on a crime scene. You could find yourself in a house where a crime had been committed. Maybe someone had not been murdered, but let's say the crime was a kidnapping that involved some violence. And you could walk into the house and you could see, broken glass and clothes torn, things like that. And you could walk around the house and you would see these clues. But all the clues in the world don't count if you don't know what crime has been committed. So all the clues about Nibiru, all the photographic evidence, all the anomalies that are being observed don't count if you don't know what crime has been committed. See what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
You need a narrative to make sense of the clues. So what narrative does one use? What narrative will make sense of the Nibiru clues? What narrative will make sense of the Satan-Lucifer clues? What narrative will make sense of the ET Archon clues? There's only one narrative in the world that can make sense of what is happening on the planet as a whole. And that is the narrative about the planet. I've said this before. So I would say to you, this is what a Gnostic who follows the narrative about the planet, the fallen goddess scenario, would say about Nibiru. Seeing double is something that happens if you get hit in the head, right?
Yeah.
If I come up and I bash you with my fist right on the forehead, at least you might see double for a while, right?
Right.
You wobble. You won't fall over. You're wobbling and you look and suddenly you see you're in a room and there's two doors and there's two of everything and they're kind of overlapping each other and separating and overlapping, right?
Right.
Seeing double is something that happens when you get really, really drunk, right?
Right.
Okay. Seeing double is a phenomenon that is sweeping across the world now, across the whole planet. And it's due to become more and more intense. In terms of the narrative, the story that explains why people are seeing double, why they're seeing two suns in the sky and so forth, is the story of correction. You have to know what crime has been committed. That is, what event is taking place for which Nibiru is a clue. That's the way you would approach it in the Gnostic analysis. What event, what massive planetary event is happening that is causing us to perceive all these anomalies in the solar system. Many, and anomalies with the sun. That event is the correction of the Aeon Sophia. And I'm going to say this now for the first time publicly, ever, anywhere on the planet. You ready?
Ready.
If you would imagine that the true form of the Earth is not flat or not round, but that it is more like a globular mass, like an amoeba,
Mm-hmm.
then the amoeba is dividing.
Well, that ties into, many things, including the whole idea of Earth 2.0, split Earth that Dolores Cannon talks about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, that perfectly leads into my next question, which is how does all of this play into Anthropos 11?
The human species is dividing. The human species is shedding the dead part of humanity that can no longer survive. That's called Anthropos 10. And out of the purity of the genome, which is called the Anthropos in the Gnostic teaching, out of the purity of the genome upon which the human species is based, a mutation is arising, which is called Anthropos 11. This is the next humanity. And so currently, there are two humanities living on the planet. One of them, Anthropos 10, is like dead skin that's going to be sloughed off, being sloughed off. The other one, Anthropos 11, is the part of humanity that truly lives up to the divine endowment of our mother, Sophia, the true magical child. And that part of humanity is emerging on the planet at the same time that the other part is dying.
Oh, we're so seeing that.
Aren't we?
The separation between the two is becoming the prevalent, I'll say.
Screamingly obvious.
Yeah.
Now, I would like to say something about the ringing now. First of all, you tell me, what do you hear about people who say they have a lot of ringing in their heads?
Well, again, the narrative seems to be that it's interference. It's negative. It's often interference. That's the biggest narrative, but there is a quieter voice that says that it's organic in nature. It's part of being part of the evolution that we're going through. They're the two main stories I hear.
Okay, well, they're both true. It's possible that you can have a ringing in your ears, what is called tinnitus, due to electromagnetic pollution and due to too much exposure to these shortwave devices. Okay?
Yep.
Human organism and the nervous system, both the autonomous nervous system, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, are fantastically beautiful, delicately designed instruments of high capacity. And the human nervous system was not designed to be soaked and stewed in a sea of shortwave radiation. And so, to some extent, the disturbing and unpleasant ringing that people are hearing is due to an overload of the nervous system and the neural circuits of the brain, indeed, by shortwave radiations and other forms of electromagnetic pollution. That is a fact. And I don't think that that's a big surprise to anybody.
No.
However, that's only half the story. At the same time that there is that kind of ringing, that phenomenon, let's say, of a toxic, it's an aural, A-U-R-A-L, meaning sound, okay? Acoustic, let's say acoustic. There's an acoustic effect upon the nervous system of all of this shortwave radiation to which we are exposed, okay? No doubt about that. Just as there is poison in the food, in the water, there's aspartame, there's fluoride, just as where the human species is exposed to the assault of all these poisons, it's also being poisoned electronically, right?
Yeah.
And one result of that is that certain people will hear this sound, and it will be very unpleasant and disturbing. However, there's another side to this story. I'm going to ask you to imagine that you're standing in a canyon, like the Grand Canyon, okay? Now, the walls of the Grand Canyon are like a mile high, you know that?
Yeah.
So you're standing down at the bottom of the Grand Canyon and in front of this great, huge wall. And let's imagine that stretched across this wall to the right and left, as far as you can see, and up to the rim of the canyon, is a curtain. It's kind of like a silk curtain.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say it's a beautiful silk curtain, beautiful white silk curtain. Obviously, it's enormous. Fills the whole wall. It's a mile high and let's say 4 miles to the right and 4 miles to the left. It's a huge, huge curtain, right? Now, imagine that there is a force that comes along right in the center. You're looking directly at this curtain. You look up, it's a mile high, right in the center, and that you see at the top of the curtain that it starts to part, starts to divide. And there is some mysterious force that is ripping the curtain in half. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All this visualization?
Yep, I'm there.
It brings to mind the old biblical image of rending the veil of the temple. Okay? The curtain is being ripped. And as the curtain is ripped, let's say that it isn't ripped slowly. Let's say that it's ripped in a matter of seconds. The entire curtain is ripped into 2 pieces, all the way down to the bottom, right in front of your feet. Now you've been visualizing that event. Now I ask you to imagine that it makes a sound. The ripping of the curtain makes a sound.
Okay. I'm with you.
Okay? And the term, the accurate term for this is shearing. Generally, people speak of metal shearing. If you go into a metallurgy shop or an engineering shop where they have metal lathes, you'll see that they could have a piece of metal, be it aluminum or steel, on a lathe, turning very rapidly, and they shearing off the metal. And as they shear off the metal, you hear a sound, don't you?
Yep.
The sound that you hear with this massive curtain being ripped is a shearing. There's a sound inside the atmosphere of the Earth, within the realm of the ionosphere, resonating between the body of the Earth and the ionosphere, which is like the sound of a shearing. And this sound is due to the separation or cell division of the planetary amoebic mass, which is separating into 2 daughter cells. Never said this before publicly. The Earth is neither flat nor is it globular, but it is rather like the shape of an amoebic cell. And if you go and look at the phenomenon of cell division, you will see it's called mitosis. That's the magic word, my friends. Mm-hmm. Mitosis, right? That a cell reproduces by mitosis. Mother cell splits into 2 daughter cells. The amoebic mass of the planet Earth, of the material body, is splitting, and that is producing a shearing sound. Okay? Am I clear so far?
Sorry, yes, I couldn't get my button unmuted. Yes.
Okay, now, if I may, I'll tell you how you can tell the difference between the shearing sound of mitosis in the planetary atmosphere, which is a natural and supernatural event, and the unpleasant ringing that people are hearing.
Okay.
Okay. Actually, it is a very elevating and healing experience to hear the shearing of the planetary envelope due to mitosis. It's actually pleasant. You know when you are hearing that and you are not being subjected to the other unpleasant sound, when you have to be very quiet. You have to sit very quietly. And the first thing that you do is sit in a place where there is no ambient sound of cars or anything mechanical. Sit by a tree out in the field. I don't know if you can do it at the beach with the sound of the ocean. I haven't had the opportunity to do that. But I would say just go into the forest, a quiet place. And the first thing you do, there are 2 steps to this exercise. First thing is to listen to the external sound of. Listen to the sound envelope around you. Listen to the wind in the grass, the wind that's making the trees flutter a little. Listen to the insects and put yourself in the bubble of natural sound, which is very close to silence, but has very light, gentle sounds playing in it, okay? Make sure that you first hear the external sound that your ears bring to you, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Then when you know that you are listening with tranquility, with serenity at the external sound, turn your hearing to the internal sound and listen if you hear the ringing. And when you do this, if you hear the shear of the earth, I'm going to call it the shear of the earth. If you hear that, you will be able to distinguish that it has 3 gradients. It has 3 levels. And when you can distinguish these levels, that's the proof that you are hearing the shearing sound, which is natural and healthy, and you are not hearing the other sound, which is due to the impact of shortwave radiation. Okay?
Yep.
The 3 levels are this. The first level is you hear the ringing, internal ringing in your ears. It's very low. It's very, very low. You can imagine like a flat line close to the earth. It's very low and quiet, but it's there and it's steady. The second level is louder. And that level is when it begins to be defined more. The pitch of the ringing becomes more defined, and it begins to have a crystalline pitch to it. At the first level, you can hear it, but it's dull. It doesn't have a crystalline pitch. So you go from the first level to the second level, where you begin to hear a crystalline pitch. And then at the third level, you hear a full-blown crystalline pitch that is so strong that it almost sounds like it could be an external sound.
Okay.
That crystalline pitch is the sound of the shearing of the planetary envelope as the Earth goes through mitosis. The Earth is dividing. The mother cell of the planet is dividing. And that is making a noise. And that is what you're hearing. And you are fortunate if you can hear it. Because that means you're sane, and it means that you can follow what the mother is doing.
The question is always, for me anyway. How is this going to play out? If there is a mitosis happening, a split happening, Anthropos 11, Earth 2.0 are in the process right now of coming into being. How does this play out? How does this play out for those of us who are on this, in this reality, knowing and seeing so much of it that we just don't feel like we belong to, that we got off on the wrong bus stop, so to speak? How does this play out for us?
There's no way to know in advance how it plays out. If you're asking me, can I give you a future scenario? No.
There's
no
nothing,
one can.
There's nothing in the Gnostic. There's nothing. There's nothing in the Gnostic material.
I am already light years beyond what you can find in the Gnostic material in what I'm telling
you. Right.
Light years. What the Gnostic material tells us, the pitiful fragments that remain, is that there is going to be an event called deorthosis. That word in itself has the implication of splitting in it, because it's deorthosis, di, meaning divide, duality, splitting, mitosis. The Gnostics said, or they probably knew a lot more than has survived in the surviving materials. But what we find in the materials is that there's going to be an event of correction. This event of correction is now underway since March of 2014. And in this event of correction, the Aeon Sophia is going to correct the anomalies that she herself introduced into this experiment. In doing so, in making her correction, those who witness her and participate in her correction will be able to take advantage of what she's doing. Those who do not will not. So it's a selection process. You select into the correction of the Aeon Sophia or not.
Because as just pointed out too, you know, when a cell divides, you then end up with two. It's not like the old one dies off and creates a new one. You actually end up with two cells. So
right. But we don't know, because this is an unprecedented event. This is a totally unprecedented event that has never happened before on this planet. It is happening to the planet as a whole. This is an event in the life of the planet. So when you say, how's it going to play out? I would say to you, well, how you want to play it, babe? You know, how you want to play it? There's no way to predict or foresee how it's going to play out. You have to participate in the event moment by moment.
We have a choice point in every moment.
That's right. And this conversation we're having right now, which is tremendous conversation, I'm enjoying this a lot.
Good.
Brings me around to the subject of divine intervention. For those who live in Sophia's story, those who know her story, and only those who know her story, an event of intervention is happening. For those who don't know her story, all the clues in the world don't count if you don't know what crime has been committed. Do you see my point?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Those who don't know her story are also caught up in the mitosis. They are caught up in correction, but they are lost in correction. They don't know where to go with it. They don't know how to follow it. Those who do can recognize that there is an event of divine intervention taking place on this planet. And you need Mantic, that is the technique of divination, to read that event. That is why Mantic supersedes spirituality. Mantic is the skill of reading the event of correction, of following what is happening on the planetary scale so that you know what to do in your life that's appropriate to what she is doing in her life.
Beautiful. Couple more questions. Are you aware of anything that shifted perceptibly shifted around September 16 this year, just gone.
Yeah, I would put it at the 26th. I was talking to a number of people in planetary tantra, and I use, navigational parameters. That is to say, I read the sky, I read the cycles of the planets, I read very, very close attention to the moon, cycles of the moon, particularly the apogee and perigee of the moon. Well, in the Gaia navigation experiment, which went on for 3 years, between 2011 and 2014, I took a group of people along and showed them how to do this. It was a great experiment in divination. And just recently, last month, I said, folks, friends in planetary tantra, I have to tell you that the 26th of September, there is an extraordinary set of factors coming into play. It's sort of like when you crack a safe, everyone has seen movies about how to crack a safe, right? So you turn the dial of the safe and you hear the notches clicking, right?
Yep.
Inside the safe, there are several lockets that fall into place, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to turn the dial one way and turn the dial another way, and you have to get those 3 or 4 lockets aligned, and then all the lockets click at once and the safe opens, right?
Right.
Well, there are moments like that happen in the timing of this event, and those moments can be detected if you know how to look at the clues, if you know how to read the sky. So it's, on September 26th, something absolutely massive has happened that is, I don't know exactly what it is, but it has ripped out permanently the foundation for any kind of evil and deceit to succeed on this planet.
Oh, I can't believe you just said that. Okay. Sorry, that's confirmation for me on a personal level about a whole heap of stuff that's just going on. Wow.
Nothing to be sorry about. Let's all celebrate.
Yeah, no.
We're diviners. This is Mantic. We're divining. And I have to tell you that Mantic is uniform, my friends. Spirituality is anything goes. Anybody can claim to be spiritual, and they can spout all kinds of nonsense and fabricate all kinds of ideals. But Mantic is uniform. If my divination is accurate, then it will match your divination. You see? Yep.
It does.
This is a confirmation that we've been waiting for. This is a whole new way to work together, synchronistically and synergetically, to bring our minds together on this planet. But it works when it's in the narrative about the planet. If you don't have the narrative about the planet, it's not going to work, because all the clues in the world, blah, blah, blah. You see what I mean?
Yes, I do. This, I think it was beginning of 2015. There was a period where myself and Dee, I think as well, Danny, were convinced that what we were calling the cell doors to this reality were open.
Right.
And that what was happening was a whole slew of distractions, so that nobody bothered to lean against the door and figure out it was open.
Exactly. Exactly. And falling out the door because it's
falling out the door, exactly. Because the guards are still standing there. We don't know that, all appearances are that nothing's changed, but the feeling was that it definitely had, and that the doors were open, but they will close again. Or in your terminology here, that this mitosis will complete itself. The opportunities for making these choices in our now moments will be done. There is a sense that time is coming very, very soon.
That's right. And I might also point out, in the context of the Mandela Effect, I want to warn you that the Mandela Effect is, in a way, a fleeting effect, but in another way it isn't. For those who cannot follow the effect and sees what it actually is, for those who cannot really divine it, it will be a fleeting effect, and the signal will fade. For those who can seize it by Mantic, by their divining skills, it will not only persist, but it will become more powerful, more rich, more revealing, and more transformative. There is a massive selection process taking place on this planet. I spoke of it years ago in a rather, I won't say sinister, but in somewhat of a more scary manner when I said, I used this term. This was during the Gaia navigation experiment. The extinction protocols of Scorpion Mother will be established when Saturn reaches Antares in the heart of the Scorpion. Well, if you go out right now and you look at the night sky, whether you're in the southern hemisphere of the north, and you find the constellation of the Scorpion, and you find this, the red star at the heart of the Scorpion called Antares, and you look very close to that star, you will see a bright light, and that is the planet Saturn. Planet Saturn is now conjunct Antares, and that is the signal that the Aeonic Mother, Sophia, is activating her extinction protocols. Now, for those who do not follow her ways, for those who do not know and love her story and live in her story, they are extinction protocols. But for those who do follow that story, they are selection protocols. You select into Anthropos 11. If you don't, you become extinct. What is happening now cannot be foretold. Nobody can predict what's coming. The thrill of it is to live moment by moment in this momentous event and see how it plays out. Don't worry about having to know beforehand how it plays out. You cannot know. But through Mantic, or the skill of divination, you can track it in real time. And that is the adventure. That is the challenge.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
Well, as I said, the supernatural is beautiful. You know, the organic light is beautiful. The universe is founded on love and beauty and pleasure. There is no evil in the cosmos. There is no Satan devil sitting in a pit somewhere. And there are two kinds of demons that torment the human species. The Archons are actual demons, and the Gnostic intel squares you away on who they are and how to deal with them. The other demons are the demons that are the products of human imagination. No, I should say there are three kinds. The Archons, which are extraterrestrial, inorganic, demon parasites. The demons created by the human psyche itself, that is to say, our psychic phantoms, can we call them that? Our psychic phantoms?
That's good.
And then the other demons are the intra-species predators who walk among us, who are of the human kind, of the human genome, but they are infected with the archontic virus. They are predators, deceivers, killers. And the confrontation with those entities is also part of this great correction process.
Yes, we do seem to be in a process of confrontation constantly.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say this, I really don't even like to mention these things, but when you look at what's happening in the news in the United States with the particular creature, the fiend, the female fiend, who is playing for the role of president, you actually see openly corruption, murder, extortion, lying, you know,
Yep.
It's all coming out. It's all coming out. And since September 27th, the enemies of life and the psychopaths can no longer hide what they're doing. It's so obvious to everybody. Even stupid people are seeing it. And this is another sign of correction, and it's a sign of the great opportunity that we're in.
This has been, and again, Mantic.
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 Thank you. Thank you. You're the first person to use that term. It's Mantic. I'm feeling so Mantic today. It's so brilliant, so lucid.
If I, the story of the incidences and events, conversations over the last 3 weeks in my life have been a story that has built on one another. It's just the story has continued to build, and the confirmations have continued to come in. And this conversation that you and I are having right now is a huge part of it. And it couldn't have happened yesterday. It couldn't have happened last week. It wouldn't have fit. It wouldn't have fit. To have it today, right here, right now, is perfect as part of the narrative of my story over the last 3 weeks. It's just extraordinary. So
that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, listen, Lisa, just to wind up, let's say we have a few more minutes.
Yes.
I wonder if I could wind up on the theme of divine intervention.
Absolutely.
That's a lighthearted subject. Okay. So, I am returning after a year of silence to public teaching, which is what I do. I teach on the internet, right? I'm a Gnostic teacher. I prefer to be called a visionary teacher. And so I've opened up a new portal on metahistory.org. It's called Mythophrenia. Okay?
Yep.
Mythophrenia. This is the new portal. And in this new portal or landing page, you will find the announcement of all the new material that I put out, which is going to be texts and talks. Okay? So I want to just give you a preview of a text and talk in development. And the title of this talk is Her Name is Silence. And that line, Her Name is Silence, actually comes from the Nag Hammadi writings. It comes from a document called the Eugnostos, Eugnostos, the Eugnostos. And I open up with that line. Well, why did the Gnostics say of the Aeon Sophia, they said of her, that her name is Silence? This is a beautiful, beautiful morsel of Gnostic intel to contemplate. And in the material under this title, I discuss various scenarios of divine intervention. Now, let me ask you, when I use the term divine intervention, what's an example? What comes to your mind? What's an example? Have you ever heard of divine intervention? Have you ever heard anyone propose a scenario or a case of it? What have you heard?
Well, it's usually reference to the hand of God.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right? So many people believe, by many, I mean billions, okay? Billions of people, that's BILLYUNS, believe that the hand of God is acting in human affairs in some mysterious ways, right?
Right, yep.
That's divine intervention. Now, answer this. Haven't you ever heard in your life of like sort of larger scenarios of divine intervention? What would you give? What's an example of that?
You mean on a larger collective scale? Or in a
Yeah, collective mythologies, collective religious scenarios of divine intervention, such as what?
Yeah, the Savior myth.
Savior myth, the Day of Judgment, right?
Yep.
Judgment Day, Book of Revelation, divine intervention. The Messiah coming to the earth is a divine intervention.
Yep.
Catholicism and Christianity are based on the idea of divine intervention, right?
Yep.
The Messiah concept of the Jews is based on divine intervention. Some Jews are still waiting for their Messiah to come, right?
Right.
The notion of divine intervention can be found in Buddhism as well. You know, there's the future Buddha, the Maitreya. Have you ever heard that word?
Yep.
Okay. I'll spring that one on you the next time. You better have your knickers on straight for that one. So, where was I? Oh, yeah. Other scenarios of divine intervention are ET intervention, right?
Yep.
What's called Encounters of the Fourth Kind. What's it called? Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind. That's an example of divine intervention, right?
That was the third kind, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. The ETs are going to come down. They're going to intervene.
Yes.
And these scenarios of divine intervention toggle between being some horrible, disastrous thing, like the apocalypse in the book of Revelation, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse and the angels spewing poison on the earth and opening the vials of pollution and a third of the animals dying, a third of the, you know, this is divine intervention, right?
Yes, it can go either way.
It can go either way, or else we'll be ascended into heaven, or the ETs are going to come and save us all. So I make an inventory of all the cases of divine intervention that have been floating around in the human mind for the last 2,000 or 3,000 years in my article, okay?
Okay.
And then what I do, with great pleasure and delight, is I tick them all off. And I say, nope, 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 nope. None of those scenarios of divine intervention fits the actual event that is now underway. None of them. And so, as part of the takeaway of this interview, I'd like people to think, those who are listening out here, I'd like you to go away, no problem, thinking about divine intervention and combining the idea of divine intervention, it's a meme, it's a mytheme, combining it in your mind with the idea of novelty. And I want to propose to you that if there is an act of divine intervention caused and directed by the Aeon Sophia, who is indwelling the planet Earth, if there is such an event happening right here, right now, then it must be approached as an event of total novelty, which means that no previous conception of divine intervention comes close to what it is. Following me?
Yes.
The way we say this in Gnostic language is the Aeonic Mother. This is how I address Sophia, the Earth. She's our mother, but she's also a goddess from the center of the galaxy. The Aeonic Mother has agency. She has agency. And she's demonstrating this agency, and that is the divine intervention. So the last thing I would leave you with, which would be my pleasure and privilege to do, is to ask you this question. It's kind of a trick question, a leading question, but you know how I like to fool around.
Mm-hmm.
What could you think of that would happen, that would be manifested by divine intervention that has never been included in any previous scenario?
Well, it's totally the story that you're telling, and it's the vision that I've held for many, many years, and where there is in fact an event.
Yes.
That just we suddenly see through, or see through this illusion. It's another birthing process. It's a death to the old and a birth into the new. This whole illusion just goes away. I don't even know how else to explain it, but
you use the term the hand of God, okay?
Yeah.
Have taken the divine intervention for many religious people, whether they be Muslims or Christians or Jews. It means, well, God, the Father God, the male, the hand of God is active upon human affairs. How does the hand of God act? Well, would it be fair to say wrathfully? I think so.
That God, yes, I agree.
Would it be fair to say with a vengeance, punishing,
Yes.
cruel?
Yes.
I think so. Now, if you want to say, oh, it's not the hand of God, it's the hand of our ET gods, our ET creators, and they're benevolent, and they're going to come down, and maybe their hand is going to reach out and is going to save us. So you could say it would be the saving hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I ask you to consider, if this is the hand of the goddess, the wisdom goddess, then what characteristic, what feature, what quality does her action show that has never been shown in any other scenario of intervention? What has never been proposed as part of the act of intervention? Never.
Well, there are certain words that come to mind that would describe the feeling of this intervention.
Let's have it. What feeling does it have that is novel, that has never been associated with intervention before?
Well, it's just totally loving and supportive and nurturing and maternal, and it's all of those things that you associate with the energies of a true mother.
Benevolent goddess mother.
Yes.
That's correct. That's correct. So we could say that the intervention of the wisdom goddess is not wrathful, not punishing, not vengeful.
No, it's totally forgiving.
Okay?
Yeah. Joyful.
I don't know about forgiving. I wouldn't go that far. But let's just say these are qualities we recognize. Now, is there another quality that could be attributed to her action that would be such that those who recognize her would say, yeah, that is totally novel. That I never thought of that before. That she would reveal herself with what?
I don't know. You're going to have to say.
How about a sense of humor?
Oh, that's not where I thought you were going. Okay.
How about a sense of humor?
Yes.
You know, there's an expression, wicked fun.
Yeah.
You hear that expression, wicked fun?
Yeah.
I don't know if you use that in Australia, but when I grew up in America, we would use the term wicked as meaning something good, something mischievous and playful.
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
So, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what if, this is my takeaway for you, what if there is an act of divine intervention happening on the planet led by the Aeon Sophia, who is embodied in the planet, and in this intervention, she's manifesting a wicked sense of humor.
Well, you can see that in some of the Mandela effects, can't you?
Exactly, exactly. And that is where I would pick it up if we continue this conversation about the Mandela Effect. The Mandela Effect has something wickedly funny about it.
Yes, it does. And I would love to continue this conversation with you in another week or so. It'd be lovely if you're available.
I'm available, and let me repeat what I'm doing to those who want to follow. Over the next few days, you will find on metahistory.org that I'm posting the 5 pieces, one at a time, in which I'm decoding the Mandela Effect. So the first one is called the Mandela Effect Breakdown. Then there's the Mandela Effect Analysis. Then there's the coded sets, because some of the Mandela effects are coded. I will decode them. And I don't want to tell you my conclusion up front. It's more fun and more instructive if you go along with me through the process that I reach my conclusion. So that's why I'm staggering this into 5 different pieces, and each of them will be accompanied by a text. Each of the texts will be accompanied by a talk. So I invite you to follow along with me on this.
Beautiful.
And see, yeah, and we see what conclusions we come to as we demonstrate our skill in Mantic. Right?
Yes. I'm on board. Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure. It's 3 in the morning here, so I think I'll go out and stand out in the evil darkness out there and let the demons come up from the pit of hell and prey upon my soul.
Oh. Wow.
Which is what many people do. You know, we're such children, the magical children of the goddess, the silly creatures. We like to scare ourselves with all this nonsense, you know. What you want to be scared of is the real fiends, you know, the politicians, you know, the bankers, you know, the interspecies predators. Those are the ones who are evil. Those are the ones who are doing harm. And there's nothing supernatural about them.
Well, I don't know about that. Sometimes Hillary looks...
She's beginning to look really ghastly, isn't she?
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness.
That's because the masks are coming off. Like you said, something ripped away in the middle of September. I put it on the 26th. Something ripped away, and it's like they can no longer operate under the cover of deceit and secrecy as before. The game is up.
The game is up. Yeah, agreed.
Okay, Lisa.
Thank you so much, and we will talk soon, and I will let you know as soon as this is available.
Excellent.
Okay. Thanks again.
Right.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us in the chat room and joining us live. Thank you for your commentary and your questions and your input. I've appreciate it very, very much. So we'll see you all soon. Bye for now.